Welcome, everyone. I'm David Aboud. Today's webinar is dedicated to using version control in your PCB projects. I'll be initiating some polls throughout the webinar. Chris Carlson is joining me to help answer some questions. Please place any questions in the Q&A panel, and if there are any issues, post something in the chat panel. We're going to start off today by discussing an overview of version control and its implementation in Altium 365. And then we will discuss the advantages of storing your projects and components in an Altium 365 workspace, and then briefly review the advantages over our traditional version control systems. After that, I'll switch to Altium Designer to show it all in action. Let's get started. You're probably already familiar with version control, but you might be thinking to yourself, why do I need it? Version control is a way to store all versions of edited documents, allowing you to return to any saved version at any moment. This method provides a key opportunity to use one project control system by many designers. In other words, this is a kind of server where project files are stored. Each designer can connect to the server, change some files, and upload them back to the server with a comment, thus updating files for the other designers. This method has been used as a programming standard for quite a long time, so many people think that it is used only by programmers. In reality, it is used by designers and some technical engineers to control changes in their work. The most interesting thing is that it is also fully suitable for PCB creation, providing many advantages. Version control can be used to perform the following operations on project files: adding files to the project, creating a separate copy of the project, also referred to as a branch, editing files, providing a data connection to use uploaded data from the repository. Let's review the typical workflow in a version control system. A repository of projects is created. Then the work on the project begins. If you need to add something new or change an existing one, a separate branch will be created in which the work is performed. After finishing work on a separate branch, changes from it can be merged into the main project branch. You can have as many branches as necessary, and work can be carried out over different parts of the project. After several iterations, the project finishes with a complete history of changes and the ability to roll back to any earlier revision. Now let's look at how this works in Altium Designer connected to Altium 365. Incorporating version control introduces little change to your existing design process. You create a new project as usual, but you select the storage location as your local repository or Altium 365 workspace. By doing so, you create the first project commit. This means you add the project itself with a folder in the version control repository. After that, all changes will be saved. After the project is created, you can add any files to the project: schematic sheets, PCB documents, output files, and any other files added to the project repository. After that, you simply commit them to the server repository with a comment to document the changes that have been made to maintain project history traceability. The commit allows the projects to appear in the version control system and become available to the other members on your team. Each team member can work on their part of the design as they normally would. The components are placed on the schematic sheets and transferred to the board for routing, but we all know this process is not performed in a single iteration. Whenever you save your files, you can commit them to the server to provide a snapshot of files, allowing you to revert any changes easily. Altium 365 also provides a version control system that works on the component level. You can use shared symbol and model revisions to ensure that all components are using the proper revisions. When you complete the project, you end up with a full project history showing who made changes, when, and why. You can send this project to anyone very quickly, make changes, and create a new project revision or separate copy at any time. We'll go into more details about benefits for each step later in the webinar. So I want to take a moment here to point out that you can also place existing projects into version control. You can upload an existing project and library to version control at any point and start working with them. All functionality and options for such projects will be equal once they are committed. Although the methods are quite similar to each other, the version control approach with Altium 365 has a number of advantages and features that can make the process easier than using a traditional version control system. Before we start talking about advantages, I want to highlight the fact that all of these advantages are available now as part of your Altium Designer subscription. First of all, you don't need to configure anything as you would with a traditional version control system. You simply activate your workspace and start working. Everything is already set up for you. The first and most obvious advantage is version control itself without the hassle of configuration. You can easily restore the history at any time and see who, what, where, when, and why project changes were made. Because your data is stored with the Altium 365 cloud infrastructure, you can access it from anywhere by using your Altium Live login credentials. When you connect to an Altium 365 workspace in Altium Designer, you can open any project and start working with it from any device. You can even view and comment on all uploaded projects using a web browser and send release design outputs directly to manufacturing. You also ensure design data integrity with very high reliability. Your files stored in Altium 365 will not be damaged or lost, as can be the case with local libraries. You also know that everyone on your team is always using the latest revision of design files and components, minimizing miscommunication and eliminating the possibility of using different file revisions. The next advantage is that Altium 365 enables collaboration for you and other team members to work together on the same project. You can connect with your team in different cities or even countries, and it does not affect the speed of your teamwork or require a VPN to a local repository. Plus, even MCAD and ECAD engineers can work together using the Co-Designer extension, allowing you to transfer all board data to the MCAD software, so that you can easily design in the context of your enclosure. Altium 365 also allows you to comment on the project in the design context by specifying a specific object or area. You can use comments in Altium Designer or share your projects with anyone through browser access. Browser access is available to anyone with a free Altium Live account without the need of any license. The convenience of design data accessibility makes it easy to convey design intent with clear and direct communication. This functionality is particularly useful for PCB contract designers. It allows them to see the exact place of any comments for customers, facilitating discussion of a particular object and close the comment after the discussion. Last but not least, it's an opportunity to work with branches. For example, there are two engineers working with the board separately from each other. Each of them performs their part of the work, and they can merge their changes into one file. This functionality is currently available for schematics, but merging for boards has limitations and is currently under active development. If you want to provide feedback on this functionality, feel free to reach out to me in an email, which I'll provide later in the questions section. Now let's switch to Altium Designer and connect to an Altium 365 workspace. I'll show you the process of creating a project with version control and how to add an existing project to your workspace. We'll start off here by going in Altium Designer 20.1. You see that it says not connected, so I click on it and I connect to Altium 365 right there. And the first thing we're going to do here is go to File, New, and we're going to create a new project. So one thing you'll notice here there are a couple locations. If you have a traditional version control system, it will show up here as well. Here we have our Altium 365 workspace. Because we are using Concord Pro on Altium 365, we see that we have templates here. So if you're using Altium 365 Pro, you have the ability to create templates for your projects, and that will give you some pretty significant benefits. You will be able to create projects with schematics, PCB documents, and other critical information already populated as soon as you create it. So you see here, I already have a schematic document and a PCB document. So right here, I simply place some components I have already on my workspace from the components panel. I can simply drag and drop. And what we see here is that all of these files have this little plus. What that means is that they are scheduled for addition here. So if I right click and you have the version control panel here, or the section in the menu, I could commit the whole project, or to be very simple, I just say save to server. And when I save to server, I see all of the information of what my commit will, what I will be committing. So here I'll just put initial commit, and I will commit all those over to my workspace. And you can see here now that we have all of these check marks, and that indicates that my local file copies are synchronized with my copies located on the server themselves. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is take a look at an existing project. So I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to pull up this existing project I have here. And when we look at the sheets, we can actually click through and see I have already migrated my library over into my workspace. You can see that you see the source as Altium 365 Cloud Library. So it is recommended that before you put anything into the version control system, you first update all of your components to be in using 365 components. Why is this? As we mentioned earlier, if you're using components that are hosted in Altium 365, you have the level of revision control on the components themselves. Everyone is able to access them from their own accounts and from anywhere. So there you have no issues of not being able to locate a file or using the wrong revision. So if everyone is using a cloud version, everyone will be able to be synchronized. So now that we have this up and ready, what I'm going to show is actually, if you right click on an existing project, you can select this Make Project Available Online. And what you have here is this button to enable, or checkbox to enable formal version control. Of course, you can select which folder to put it in your repository. I will leave the project description here, but it is generally good practice to give a more descriptive title. I'm going to click OK, and we will see here once again, it will put it into my Git repository within my 365 workspace. And you can see here that since I am adding an existing project, it fully committed all of the files directly. Okay, so now that this file is in our workspace, There's a really nice benefit that we have. If you right click on the project file, you can click show in browser, and it will open up directly in our workspace within the web browser. And as I mentioned earlier, anyone is able to access the design through this web browser as long as you give them access. If you are working with a contract manufacturer, or you are a contract manufacturer, or if you are a contract designer, or if you're working with manufacturing, you're able to give this information over to someone. And anyone who is accessing through the web browser does not need a license for this. If you are accessing a workspace through Altium Designer, you do need an active license, but through the web browser, you are able to just click through and actually view everything without the need to have that license. And you can see here, you have the same types of functionality. We have the 2D and we have the 3D as well, right? You have the bill of materials, and you actually have a manufacturing tab, which I went over in my last webinar. If you release your outputs to this area, you are actually able to package those up and send those out to manufacturing. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out my Communicating Design Intent with Manufacturing Outputs webinar. Okay, so what are we going to do from here? Let's switch things up a bit and go back to Altium Designer. Okay, so we're going to start up over here and do Open Project. As you can see here, we have the location again of our Altium 365 workspace, and we see here the project we have uploaded. So I'm going to open it up here, and we're going to start off by opening up a schematic here. And to make it simple, I'm just going to copy this and paste it over. And under Tools, Annotation, I'm just going to annotate the schematic quietly so I can get some reference designators there. And I'm going to update the PCB with those components quickly. I'm going to create the links there as needed. And it will run the ECO for me, open up the PCB document, and these new components will be placed on the document. As you can see, we made some changes in the libraries themselves, from local libraries over to our Altium 365 libraries. So it's changing those parameters and updating them. You can see here we have two new components. This is just for the sake of demonstrating some changes here, so I'm just going to place them there rather quickly and save. Once again, in the schematic, I'm going to click Save. And lastly, I'm going to add New to Project Schematic. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're using Altium 365 Pro level subscription, you have the ability to have schematic templates, just templates in general. So I'm going to add a new sheet here. Let's do this sheet. And coming through from the components panel, I'm just going to drop a couple components on it. And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that all of these components are hosted on my workspace, it is going to eliminate the need to have all the local libraries, which is going to eliminate the potential to have these files be damaged or lost. And it's also going to ensure that everyone is using the correct revision of all of these components. So I can simply right click on them and do place, or I can select one and drag it over as need be. See right there. Okay, so now that we've added this new document, I can save it. And we see here, I'm going to save to server. And we see this little icon, this red circle indicates that there have been modifications between my local project files and the server files. So I have added decoupling, caps, and new schematic. Right, so I'm going to commit and push it. And now we see that we have the green check mark symbolizing that our local files have been synchronized now with our server files. Okay, switching over now to our first installation. We come over and we see the project files once again. If we come down and right click on version control, we can hit refresh. And we see that there have been changes. You have this little icon here letting you know that there have been changes, right? So at this point, I can right click on them. I can do certain things. I can update my existing schematic. I can resolve conflicts, or I can do this. I can do compare with head. And that's going to open up what I currently have with the project I have in my version control system. And when it does that, it is going to open up the differences panel as well. Okay, and we see here it loaded up all of the differences that it has found. As you see here, it has identified all of the changes in the parameters. You can actually click through all of the differences and it will give you a visual comparison. Something that makes it really easy to identify any differences. If you need to track down any issues that have been introduced, it also categorizes them by type. So here we have extra schematic items. So we can come through here and you see that these are the extra schematic items, right? Because I copy pasted this whole area. So this has been added in, and it will obviously not be found in this revision. The same type of information would be also nice to have in the opposite if things have been removed. So you will find that in the differences panel when you make that comparison. So I'm going to close this, right? And as I come back into the projects section, I can right click on my schematic and I'm going to do update whole project. And that's going to update all of the projects that have an issue here. And here you see it wants me to merge the files. I can keep the local or I can prefer repository version. So I am going to prefer the repository version. And there you have it. Coming back over to the PCB document, we have the same type of difference. Another way to check out differences that I showed you, if the revisions are out of sync and it's been identified, you can use that option. However, if you want to look at different revisions, you can right click and go to the version control, or go to local history and go to storage manager. And as you're looking through the files, you can see here that there are different versions for everything. So if we come back to one of these files, you can compare two of the different versions, and it will do the same type of comparison that it showed us before, right? So it'll show us here and here all of the differences between the different files. And you also have the ability there to revert to a previous version. So if I go to local history, storage manager, and I can simply click on something and do revert to, and as you can see here, for example, this version 6 is a version that has been reverted to version 3 here. So not only do you have visibility into the different versions, but if you have done any reversions, you also have visibility into that. Over here, you can see the person who has made changes. Right here, you can see I am the author and the comments and the dates in which I have made those modifications. Last thing I want to show here, we added this schematic 6. I'm going to simply remove it from the project. And save that. See right here, commit, push. Coming back over here, let's close all these documents. And when I refresh, we see that there are some updates here. And that has been removed from the project. Of course, if you want at any time, you can remove something just from version control and keep it here in your projects there if you would like. Okay, with that, I want to thank everyone for their time. I'm going to pass this on over to Chris Carlson to help answer some questions. Please place them in the Q&A panel, and thank you.